Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session of National English Language Teaching, Medellin 2025. We are very glad to have you here as we continue sharing ideas and experiences that enrich our teaching practice. It's my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Andrés Becerra. Andrés is an English teacher with a bachelor's degree in basic education, currently taking a master's degree in technology and innovation for education at Santo Tomás University. He holds an important 16-year career as an English teacher, academic coordinator, and curriculum designer. Throughout his career, he has collaborated with various private language schools in Colombia, holding roles both as a teacher and administrative tasks. Furthermore, he has expanded his academic background with diplomas in key areas such as education and media, and education and virtuality. He has contributed to the design of educational programs for work and development in Colombia, specifically in designing curricula for programs in English for business, English for specific purposes, and teacher training. He currently performs as an academic consultant for Pearson Education in Colombia and Ecuador, and gives support to other countries in South and Central America. Please, today he will be leading the session named Brains and Bilingualism, the CLIL connection. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Andrés Becerra.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. I think I will shorten that presentation, right? That video is kind of long. Thank you so much. How are you guys today? Good? Fine? Okay, tired? Sort of? Well, I think I'm nervous as you're tired, so don't worry about that. As I was already introduced, my name is Andrés Becerra. I am an academic consultant from Pearson Education, which is a learning company that has presence around the world. And we've been accompanying Colombo here in Colombia in different processes. I'm really happy to be here in this highly regarded school here in the country, sharing some interesting information about a topic that is of our interest, which is CLIL. Okay, I'd like to be asking questions constantly to the audience, so I don't know if I can do it. Okay, thank you so much. So if any of you guys wants to I don't know, participate, ask questions, or maybe just share some knowledge that you may have about the topic, you're more than welcome. Okay. Do you guys know what CLIL means? I think you know. Content and language integrated learning. Okay, so today we will talk about that and the high value that CLIL has for our curriculum. So let's start with this. You here guys have a kids program, right? Yes, and the other schools. I'd like to know how you handle or how you work with kids in your program, like some ideas, some methodologies that you follow, maybe some pedagogical approaches that you use with your kids in your schools. Maybe anyone wants to share. Thank you.
Project-based learning.
Okay, excellent. So you work on PBL.
Yeah.
What is that? Can you give us like some more information about how you use PBL in your school?
Yeah, well, basically at the end of some units, we have projects. They're usually described on the books, and students have to prepare a product. It can be a poster, it can be handcraft, and they have a presentation on what they did. They have to make some research.
Okay. Could you say that a PBL is a multidisciplinary, let's say, approach or method?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yes? Okay, why?
Well, I would say that it involves like different areas of knowledge, so that's why.
Okay, that's great, nice. By the way, today I will speak about PBL.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session of National English Language Teaching, Medellin 2025. We are very glad to have you here as we continue sharing ideas and experiences that enrich our teaching practice. It's my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Andrés Becerra. Andrés is an English teacher with a bachelor's degree in basic education, currently taking a master's degree in technology and innovation for education at Santo Tomás University. He holds an important 16-year career as an English teacher, academic coordinator, and curriculum designer. Throughout his career, he has collaborated with various private language schools in Colombia, holding roles both as a teacher and administrative tasks. Furthermore, he has expanded his academic background with diplomas in key areas such as education and media, and education and virtuality. He has contributed to the design of educational programs for work and development in Colombia, specifically in designing curricula for programs in English for business, English for specific purposes, and teacher training. He currently performs as an academic consultant for Pearson Education in Colombia and Ecuador, and gives support to other countries in South and Central America. Please, today he will be leading the session named Brains and Bilingualism, the CLIL connection. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Andrés Becerra.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. I think I will shorten that presentation, right? That video is kind of long. Thank you so much. How are you guys today? Good? Fine? Okay. Tired? Sort of? Well, I think I'm nervous as you're tired, so don't worry about that. As I was already introduced, my name is Andrés Becerra. I am an academic consultant from Pearson Education, which is a learning company that has presence around the world. And we've been accompanying Colombo here in Colombia in different processes. I'm really happy to be here in this highly regarded school here in the country, sharing some interesting information about a topic that is our interest, is of our interest, which is CLIL, okay? I'd like to be asking questions constantly to the audience, so I don't know if I can do it. Okay, thank you so much. So if any of you guys wants to, I don't know, participate, ask questions, or maybe just share some knowledge that you may have about the topic, you're more than welcome, okay? Do you guys know what CLIL means? I think you know. Content and language integrated learning. Okay, so today we will talk about that and the high value that CLIL has for our curriculum. So let's just start with this. You here guys have a kids program, right? Yes, and the other schools. I'd like to know how you handle or how you work with kids in your program, like some ideas, some methodologies that you follow, maybe some pedagogical approaches that you use with your kids in your schools. Maybe anyone wants to share. Thank you.
Project-based learning.
Okay, excellent. So you work on PBL.
Yeah.
What is that? Can you give us like some more information about how you use PBL in your school?
Yeah, well, basically at the end of some units, we
Uh-huh.
have projects. They're usually described on
Okay.
the books, and students have to prepare a product. It can be a poster, it can be handcraft,
Okay.
and they have a presentation on what they did. They have to make some research.
Okay.
That's basically it.
Could you say that a PBL is a multidisciplinary, let's say, approach or method?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Why?
Well, I would say that it involves like different areas
Uh-huh.
of knowledge,
Uh-huh.
so that's why.
Okay, that's great. Nice. By the way, today I will speak about PBL. This is part of my presentation, so thank you so much for mentioning that method. Okay. Nice. So let's move on. So I have this group of students in my classroom. Some of you might work with kids. Some of you might work with teenagers or maybe adults. Yeah. So we have different contexts. But this guy, you know who he is? You guys know his name? And maybe what about this guy here? No idea. And what about him? And this guy? Okay, so let's start with the first person here. So his name is Howard Gardner. You know what Gardner said? Who wants to tell me what he said? What does that mean?
Track. don't do that. There's more than one thought process
Okay.
in regard to some people have emotional intelligence, and some people have kinetic intelligence. Some
Okay.
people, okay, according to, and sometimes you have a multiple or a combination of them, and that's what usually happens.
Thanks a lot. So it means that all of us have a different way to approach knowledge and different way to learn.
Factors. That's
Okay.
why we do diversity.
Okay, and that's why, depending on also the kind of subject we are studying, we show more interest in the learning process. So it has a lot to do with something that's called motivation and a lot more different things. Yeah. Okay, Howard Gardner, second person here. And actually, we'll talk about this guy later as well. His name is Benjamin Bloom. Yeah, and he speaks about the Bloom's taxonomy. Who wants to tell me something about the Bloom's taxonomy? Another person. Okay, we have some hands up there.
Thanks, Sebas. Yeah, well, in a nutshell, the Bloom's taxonomy is kind of like an organization of thought processes. Yes, it goes like as a pyramid, and it divides like these thought processes into like lower thinking processes and higher thinking processes. And we can see that, like, according to that, we mostly, or in a learning environment, what has been done up until recently is just to follow up until like steps 1, 2, and 3, which would be memorize, and would be kind of like understanding, and then application. Yes, like memorizing, understanding, and applying.
Okay.
And then you have like the other 3 that are like the higher processes that are assessing, if I'm not mistaken. The other one is kind of like
Create.
creating. Yeah, that's.
Uh-huh.
And I forgot what was. There were like these 3 higher thinking processes, but that's pretty much like the sum of it.
Okay,
I
thanks
guess.
a lot. Yeah, so he speaks about levels of complexity. When you are learning a concept or a process, your brain goes through certain levels of complexity, yeah? I'm going to go more in depth speaking about the level of complexity by Bloom. Who's this guy? His name is Albert Bandura, yeah? He speaks about something that's called, or he coined it that way, social learning theory. And in his theoretical framework, motivation is important. And it's that when we go through a multidisciplinary approach, like content and learning, content and language integrated learning, we are, from different areas of knowledge, we are fostering processes in the classroom that call or hook students' attention and motivation, yeah? So that's why Bandura's theory is also important here. And this guy here is called David Kolb, and he proposes something that's called experiential learning. So basically what he explains contributes to the fact that through experiences, students can learn. And it has a lot to do with project-based learning and has a lot to do with CLIL as well. So understanding the theoretical framework behind is something that helps us to understand better the CLIL method. So many of your students might like, biology or science, maybe. So why can't I use this subject to teach English in the classroom? That would be interesting, because that way I am addressing the multiple intelligences our students might have. Yeah. Some of our students might like arts. And as I was waiting for this presentation time to come, I was walking around and I saw that here you have a lot of spaces through which students can learn. You know, you have like a lot of sculptures. You have a lot of different things that can be used for our students to learn from the arts perspective. Some of your students might like technology. Do you guys have students in the classroom who like technology, or they are like tech savvy and they are interested in this kind of topics? Well, or maybe some of your students might like sports. Yeah, there is in a classroom the common student who's an athlete or who likes to play soccer or on the weekends goes and play. Yeah, and also we can also have students who like, history or geography. So why don't use these specific areas of knowledge for teaching English in a classroom? In your program here in Colombo, you have any class or any academic moment or space where you can promote this kind of topics in the class or not? Which ones? Could you tell me of one that you have? Maybe a speaking club or a cultural club or something? Anybody would like to share? I don't know Colombo's program very well. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, nice.
Thank you. And very recently, actually, my colleague here next to me and myself, and a lot of us, we got this agreement with the Secretary of Development.
Okay.
And we're actually now tailoring English for specific purposes.
Okay.
So we're teaching in English, but we're not teaching English. And the 4 areas or lines of action are IT, we have media production, we have culinary arts and hospitality. So what we're trying to do is to re-educate ourselves to talk about these topics in the class in English, but not necessarily teaching general English. And that's something that's pretty new to us, and that's a challenge for us, but it's also a way for us to integrate CLIL more in depth in our sessions.
And how do you deal with the fact that some teachers might not know about those specific topics? Like teachers have to train themselves or what?
We're trying to sell this beautiful story that so it's an opportunity for us to learn more, to challenge what we know. And in reality, we're preparing students to face life, and life has this element. So it's not really, we're not seeing it from the perspective where we fear that we do not necessarily know a lot about these aspects, or we're not professionals in the field, but rather we know that students need this for their lives, and our roles, just beyond English teachers, but our role as educators is to prepare them to face that life, to be global citizens. And in that regard, then we're trying to read, we're trying to prepare a certain bank of vocabulary, we're trying to also like re-educate ourselves little by little and gradually, so that we can also be better people for our students, and so that we can be better educators for the citizens we want to see the day of tomorrow.
That's great, and I think that's amazing because it also demands from teachers the fact that they have to be constantly learning new things, you know? It's like sometimes we encapsulate ourselves in just speaking English and teaching grammar, teaching structures, but when we work with this sort of approaches, with this kind of approaches, it demands from us that we train ourselves constantly in new topics. So maybe one day I have to teach a lesson about technology and I don't know about that topic. So I have to go ahead and read about that, document myself so that I can go and give a class. So I think that's an amazing approach, and I assure you guys that if you do that in your schools, your teachers are growing professionally and in terms of knowledge. They are acquiring a lot new vocabulary and many other things. So what is CLIL? As you said before, Content and Language Integrated Learning is an educational approach where students learn a subject and a second language, in this case English, simultaneously. It combines content mastery with language development, promoting, look at this is important, deeper understanding and communication skills. Deeper understanding, why? Because when they are learning from other areas of knowledge, they are actually communicating based on the needs for communication and not based on the structure and understanding the structure of a language. David March is one of the CLIL pioneers. And he says this: CLIL is a powerful tool to prepare learners for the globalized world by teaching them to think and communicate in another language. So which means that This approach promotes communication, but most importantly, it also promotes critical thinking. That is a concept that everybody's talking about, this concept nowadays, critical thinking. Now, Du Coyle is another pioneer who, along with David Marsh, proposed the approach or the method, and she speaks about the 4Cs framework. Do you know it? You know the 4Cs framework? What do you think those 4Cs stand for? Communication, class, conductist? Ah, okay. It's not, actually it's behaviorist, but maybe conductist can work as well, but no. Which one did you say? Context, okay. Any other? Culture, okay, that's good. Communication, well, the 4Cs stand for these four. Number one, content. So she says, look, in CLIL method, there are four concepts that start with a C. The number one is content, which has to do with what we learn. So it can be math, it can be social science, history, it can be, I don't know, music, physical education, whatnot. That is the content, what we learn, okay? Technology, software development, anything. For example, when it comes to working on programs that promotes English for specific purposes, like the content Cambrai, yeah? I remember once I worked at a school where we taught English to software developers. So I had to document myself a lot with these concepts, you know, vocabulary and whatnot. The second C stands for what? Communication. So it has to do with the language itself. So I'm going to get some content across by using a specific language, in this case, English. So when it comes to communication, we have here everything: the structure, syntax, semantics, the pragmatics part of the language, pronunciation, lexical, etc. The third C stands for cognition. Did you say that? Did you say that before, cognition? I don't know, I don't remember. The cognition part, according to the 4Cs framework, has to do with the level of complexity of, in this case, the use of language or the contents that we are approaching. So in this case, we have to speak about the Bloom's taxonomy, but we will do it later. And the 4C stands for what? For culture. So it has to do with the cultural impact that what I am learning through the language has in terms of my training and my development in terms of cultural awareness. You know what's cultural awareness? What is cultural awareness? Any idea? That light is annoying. Cultural awareness. Anybody? Exactly, thank you. So it has to do with how aware you are of the use of a language depending on the culture, the context where you are at. So it turns out that by approaching this CLIL method, I can not only learn content about different areas of knowledge or how to communicate it or how to go through different levels of complexity, but it also contributes to my cultural awareness and it makes me more a global citizen. You know? So this concept of global citizenship is another concept that is very common nowadays. This is the part of cognition when we speak about the third aspect on how we think that I mentioned before. And here we have to speak about the Bloom's taxonomy, which is the one that was being described by one of the teachers here minutes ago. So Benjamin Bloom proposes that there are 6 stages of cognitive complexity. Yeah? What is cognitive complexity? Well, that every time we scaffold one of these stages, the process of learning becomes more complex. So every time we start learning something new, for example, let's say, think about one of your classes, one of the groups you have. Where do you work? You work here? Okay, think about one of your classes. What are you learning in this moment in your class? Maybe a basic level. Sorry? Emotions, okay. Nice. So I might guess that you are also teaching your students in terms of grammar and vocabulary. You're teaching them adjectives. Yes. Okay. Are you speaking maybe about comparatives and superlatives? Also, like the concept of emotions, but apply in a specific context. In animals' emotions? How's that? Look at this. This is CLIL, evidently. So, oh, I think that's a good example of a class. Like we can speak about that lesson in terms of CLIL, because maybe we can speak about biology or different species. And by introducing that vocabulary, I'm not only learning English, but also learning something related to science or biology, right? So maybe, I don't know. Okay, so in your lesson about animal emotions, your students need to remember things. For example, basic vocabulary about adjectives. Yes? Then they understand new concepts in your lesson, so they understand that animals also have feelings. Yes? And by understanding that, they start applying, hold on. By understanding that, they start applying that thing that they understood. So, yeah, animals have feeling as we do, right? So how similar or how different are those feelings, and what ways do we get our feelings across, and what ways do animals get their feelings across? Yes? So maybe. And then by applying those new concepts, then after they analyze what they did, you evaluate your students and they create something new. Maybe a presentation, or they create based on TBL, they create a dialogue, I don't know, yes? So that is a common process that occurs in everyday's lessons, something that goes through these 6 different stages of cognitive complexity according Benjamin Bloom. This is just a simple example so that we understand how it works. Well, it turns out that Benjamin Bloom proposes something that he called HOTS and LOTS. Do you know what HOTS and LOTS is? Yes? HOT is an acronym. What's that? Higher order thinking skills, which are create, evaluate, and analyze. They are higher order thinking skills because according to Bloom, these are the most complex. And then we have the LOTS. What are LOTS? Lower order thinking skills that are, the easier stages according to Bloom, and they are remembering, understanding, and applying. And Bloom proposes different actions in each one of the stages, and eventually these actions are the ones that we use to propose the learning objectives, the objectives for my class. For example, students will be able to use different adjectives to describe their emotions. That is a learning objective that belongs to the stage of applied. That is one of the lots according to Benjamin Bloom. Yeah? Okay, there's a lot of things to speak about, but my intention by speaking about Bloom's taxonomy is that Bloom's taxonomy, according to Du Coyle, is the one that sustains, or the one that validates the third C, that is the one about cognition. When she speaks about cognition, she speaks about the levels of complexity that a student goes through when they are learning. This is the Bloom's taxonomy list of verbs that we can have, different actions that we can have in each one of the categories that Benjamin Bloom proposes. If you're interested about this list of verbs, I'll share with you this presentation. Don't worry. I know they can't be read easily, but we'll be sharing this. There is another concept, according to Du Coyle, which is the 3 dimensions of CLIL, which are these 3. I want you to take 1 minute. Oh, my timer is there. I want you to take 1 minute to talk with the person next to you, okay? If you're not sitting next to a person, just get close. If you haven't greeted that person, just say hi, introduce yourself, where you come from and whatnot. And I want you to select one of this. Select one of this, yeah? Language of learning, language for learning, and language through learning. And I want you to select only one and discuss what you think that might be about. You understand it? Is it clear? You have 1 minute. Go ahead, start. Okay. So who spoke about language of learning? The first one. Language of learning. Anybody? Did anybody speak about language of learning? Nobody? Really? Okay, the second one, language for learning. So all of you guys spoke about the third one? Really? Language for learning. Okay, so I'm going to explain the first two. Which one you... let's go ahead and guess.
In terms of things, you didn't have to. Yeah, pretty much kind of like the basics of the language, like grammar, I don't know, syntax, all this stuff. Like only like focused on that, on the language itself, and not on like learning new concepts or like newer stuff using that language.
Let's say general English.
Yeah, general English.
Okay.
That would be, yeah. In a nutshell.
Let's see what it is about. So it says, this refers to the subject-specific vocabulary and structures that students need to learn from content. It's the core language of the topic. But actually,
Thanks.
it was not what he said.
Oh.
I don't know why you're clapping if it's not what he said. I think it's quite the opposite, right? So according to...
We're in a supportive environment.
Yeah,
so
that's very supporting. I think it's a nice
some
word.
clapping when I fail. Thanks.
We are addressing mistakes in the classroom, which is good. Okay, no, but thanks a lot. But it's actually quite the opposite of what you said. So language of learning refers to the specific vocabulary. For example, if I am teaching software development, so there are some specific words that only exist in that context. For example, I don't know, back end, front end, yeah, debugging, yeah. Or there are some words that belong to other contexts but have a different meaning. For example, a bug. What is a bug in software development? Like a virus, or maybe a problem that certain program has. Yes? Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. Let's go to the second, language for learning. Let's throw another spaghetti to the wall, as he said. But this time I hope you aim well. I'm just kidding. I appreciate the fact that you... Actually, just come to me when we finish. I'm going to give you a prize for that. Thank you. So anybody? Second one, language for learning. I have another prize for the person who tells me about the second one. Even if you make a mistake, I don't care about that. Nobody? Really? Guys, you're too shy. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. So, language for learning.
Uh-huh.
It means that it's not just the specific language of the topics.
Okay.
Right? but is how can we use the language in terms of learning? We're not just we don't use language in terms of okay, we have verb to be and that's it. No, we always use the language, and through the language we learn, of course, about language.
So that would be the third?
Well,
I don't know.
maybe. That's
Okay.
that's a nice reflection.
You want to help me with the second one or the third one? Okay, so go ahead. But thank you. That was a nice try, though. Come to me and I give you a prize at the end of a presentation.
Okay, so what I think language for learning is based on skills and also the, what's the right word for that? Essentially, so how students learn in terms of like their learning abilities. So if they're more of like hands-on learners, if they're more visual learners, those kinds of things.
So you're speaking about multiple intelligences?
Possibly.
Maybe.
Language for learning, but essentially using that to be able to get students to create the content, but also learn in terms of their long-term memory.
Well, when I see all these theorists proposing these theories, sometimes I say, wait, but this is too obvious, like speaking about of and for, and you will see that's very obvious. But now I just realized that it's not that obvious, actually. Thank you so much.
So I think language for learning refers to using the language as a vehicle for the students to acquire the knowledge. I think so. I mean, we can provide them the structures and they can put into practice, into projects and something like that. So I think that language for learning is more referred to the language as a vehicle. I think.
Okay. Remember something. Okay. Go ahead. Here.
Maybe it's when you give students the language they need to be able to succeed at what you want them to learn, like to have a basis so that they can succeed at developing a task or something like that.
Okay, good. Now, look at this. I think you need to place yourself in a context where the people who propose this method called CLIL are not language teachers, but they are math teachers, science teachers, history teachers. So I will show you the definition, and for you it will be very obvious, but for them it is not. Yes? So when they mean, or when they speak about language for learning, it refers to the language students need to operate in the classroom. Yeah? In the other language. So it has to do with what you two said. Yeah, but more than that, is the basic language in the classroom that they have to use. Let's suppose we are teaching math, but we're not teaching math in English, but we're teaching math in, I don't know, do you guys know Italian? No? Okay, that's perfect. So we are teaching English in Italian. So that's what I was expecting, actually. So what kind of expressions do I need to use in the classroom in Italian so that we are capable of learning at a basic level, start learning mathematics? Well, what kind of expressions do you need in the classroom? What are those classroom expressions that you teach in the first level to true beginners? How do you say? What's the meaning of? How do you spell? Can you repeat that, please? Turn the page on, or go to, open the book on page. So this is what they mean, that language for learning that I need to operate at a basic level in the classroom. Now think about the context of learning Italian. Are those words difficult for us in this moment? How do you say, what's the meaning of in Italian? You see? So that is the language for learning, the basic concepts I need to go through different contexts. Now, I said, this is obvious for us because we are language teachers, and we do this with all our true beginners in the classroom. But this is not obvious for a math teacher. Do you get what I mean? Yes? Okay, and language through learning, let's go and say it. Language through learning, this is the language that emerges naturally as the students explore, discover, and communicate while learning the content. So everything that you said, yeah? This one. Yeah, when they explore the language, they use it autonomously. Yes, and here we are going to speak about different approaches in the language teaching paradigm that exists there. This is an example. Look at this. These are the 3 dimensions: language of learning, for learning, and through language. So, of learning, vocabulary about a specific subject. For example, evaporation, texture, and balance. What do you think the subject is? Science, maybe. So this is the vocabulary. Language for learning, functional classroom language. Describe, compare, ask, follow instructions. They look like Benjamin Bloom's verbs in the taxonomy, remember? According to levels of complexity. Yeah? And language through learning. Okay, emergent, discovered language. Teacher, I think evaporation happens when, yeah, so the student is now producing, as you said, like freely and autonomously, okay? TBL in CLIL, you know what TBL means, right? Task-based learning. So remember, according to task-based learning, I can propose situations where students simulate or role-play in different scenarios, like buying something at a shop, or looking for an address, or following directions, or maybe they role play or simulate a job meeting or a job interview, in 3 stages: the pre-task, the task, and the post-task. Well, it turns out that all these topics students can talk about on a TBL lesson can be related to other areas of knowledge. Yes, for example, if we are role-playing in the classroom a job interview, what kind of areas of knowledge can be implied there? Maybe ethics. What else? Etiquette, maybe. Yeah? In a job interview, what? Aesthetics, maybe. Aesthetics. What else? If we are, I don't know, like in this, doing a role play about looking for direction. Which one? Geography, maybe we can speak about, I don't know, history, because we can speak about places in the city. Yeah? So other areas of knowledge are always present, for example, in this case, in TBL. Active learning in CLIL. Look, this teacher organized the classroom in this way. This teacher organized 3 groups, group A, B, and C. And then they start working on an activity, and then 10 minutes later, the teacher moves student 2 to group B, student 5 to group A, and student 8 to group 2, this way. And then 10 minutes passed, and he moves student 3 to group C, student 9 to group B, and student 6 to group A. Have you ever done that technique in the classroom? In active learning, like organizing groups and having your students switch every 10 minutes or 15? No, never? Never done that in the classroom? How do you call that technique? Centers? Like, okay, nice. That's the name we give it here, right? Yes? You know? That's the name you give it. Okay. No, but this is not only with small children, but you can also do it with adults or, teenagers. Thank you so much. Jigsaw reading. That's called jigsaw technique from active learning. Yes? Okay. And when I do this, like let's say this jigsaw technique, I can have students speaking about different topics. And this way I can also foster and reinforce, collaborative approaches, communication, and I can reinforce different abilities in the classroom. PBL in CLIL. You know PBL? Yes, what are the essential aspects of PBL? We also need to have a problem, a challenging problem, yeah? The second, we go through the method or the lessons through sustained inquiry. The project must be authentic. The project must have students' voice and choice. The project must foster reflection, critique and revision, and also we need to have a public product. This must also always be present in a project-based learning lesson. Well, projects can be, for example, this is an example of a project, creating a podcast series. Creating a podcast series on a topic of interest can help students learn about journalism, media studies and communication. They can also learn about the importance of storytelling, interviewing, and audio production. If I have my students work in a project for creating a podcast, what kind of areas of knowledge I will need, to work on this project? Any idea? Creating a podcast? Technology. Okay. Yes. Editing. What else? It depends on the topic for the podcast. If it's a podcast about history, well, we'll need history. If it's a podcast about, I don't know. Yes? You told me you work based on PBL on your school, right? Yes. Tell me one project you've worked on. And what kind of knowledge have you taken from other areas?
Well, in my case, we constantly do this with, especially with kids and teenagers, but currently with some students who are adults. We have worked on a couple of projects, like similar projects. We did kind of like a video at first, and it was a video talking about like Antioquia. Yes, under a certain light, like for instance, regarding technology or its nature, or for example, storytelling in Antioquia. So they had to research some myths or some stories around certain subjects or certain landmarks, and talk about them, kind of like present them to a general audience through a video. So it was not just kind of like a Canva presentation and that's it, but it was more like they had to talk to the camera, so they had to, I don't know, like they had to have these communication skills in order to like sound kind of like engaging as well. They had to learn about editing, as you said. They had to research the actual landmarks that they wanted to talk about. And as you were saying, like it was all decided by the students. Like I gave them the idea, and I told them, hey, we're going to make a video, and it's going to have like these general guidelines, but you choose the subject that you want to talk about, as long as it is like centered around Antioquia.
Okay.
So that was kind of like.
That's amazing. They have that autonomy and agency on the process of selecting what you're talking about. I'm just wrapping up this, and just remember that we always need to have a specific framework to work from if we are using CLIL, and in this case, the Global Scale of English by Pearson can be a really good and a really supportive framework through which we can establish the learning objectives for lessons. Just a call to action: remember to revise and incorporate the 4 C's. Check and apply the 3 dimensions, which are learning for what? Language for? For learning, of learning and through learning. Okay, they're different. Remember to use the Bloom's taxonomy as a way to identify actions or learning objectives. Foster active learning activities for the classroom. Didactics, apply other ELT strategies such as PBL, TBL, flip learning, etc. Use the GSE, assess students in different ways. And well, sorry, I had to run, but time is over. Thank you so much for attending this presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much to Andres for sharing with us your insights and your experience with us in this session. And thank you all for your attention and participation in this session. We have 2 invitations for you. The first one is, please don't forget to scan the QR code pasted on the walls, because it's important for us share